Welcome. The story of Ten Chimneys begins with Alfred Lunt. To set the stage, the year, 1892. The place, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Alfred was born into a wealthy lumber family, but tragically his father died when Alfred was just 2 years old. Alfred's mother, Hattie, was a flamboyant woman who enjoyed art, culture, and fine things. She was known to say, "I can do without the necessities, but I cannot live without the luxuries." It was Hattie who instilled a love of theater in Alfred from the tender age of 2. When Alfred was 7, his mother married Dr. Carl Sederholm, and they had 3 more children. Dr. Sederholm shared Hattie's love of fine living, but the family fortune began to wane. In 1906, they moved from Milwaukee to the small village of Genesse Depot. The next year, they took up residence with Dr. Sederholm's relatives in a Swedish colony in Finland. The happy influence of both of these places would stay with Alfred his whole life. Unfortunately, Dr. Sederholm died in 1909, leaving Alfred the man of the family. Hattie moved the family back to the United States, and Alfred attended Carroll College Academy, and later Carroll College in Waukesha. Alfred's teacher and mentor at Carroll was May Nickel Rankin. In his later years, Alfred remarked that it was Miss Rankin who showed me how to make something of my capabilities. She was the substance of my education. At Miss Rankin's urging, Alfred transferred to Boston to attend her alma mater, Emerson School of Oratory. Each day, his walk to school took him past the Castle Square Theater. Within a week of his arrival, he went in and asked for a job. The director replied, "Will you take $5 a week?" Alfred's answer was an immediate yes. When Alfred turned 21, he came into an inheritance from his father and decided to build a permanent home for Hattie and the children. It was 1914 when he bought 3 acres of land here in bucolic Genesse Depot, which he remembered so fondly. Here he built the first part of the main house. Over the years, the estate would grow to well over 100 acres. Alfred continued to work hard and began to tour with legendary actresses of the day. Among them were Margaret Anglin, Lily Langtry, and Laura Hope Cruz, who is perhaps best remembered for her portrayal of Aunt Pittypat in Gone with the Wind. Alfred toured with these grandes dames of the theater from about 1915 to 1919, when he finally landed in New York and met the heroine of our story. Lynn Fontanne was born in Essex, England in 1887. Her father loved literature and exposed her to the works of Shakespeare, Dickens, and Jules Verne. It was said that by the age of 5, Lynn was able to recite Shakespeare with perfect diction. She knew she must go on the stage. When Lynn was growing up, Ellen Terry was one of the most beloved actresses on the English stage. As a teenager, Lynn was fortunate enough to receive a letter of introduction to the legendary star from a family friend. She auditioned for Miss Terry, who saw something special in Lynn and began to tutor her for free. Lynn played bit parts and continued to struggle for a number of years until she met Laurette Taylor, a popular American actress who had been touring England with her prominent writer-director husband, J. Hartley Manners. After seeing Lynn perform, Miss Taylor and Mr. Manners invited her to come to America as a member of their acting company. Lynn booked passage on a steamship as fast as she could. Meanwhile, back in the States, it was 1919, and Alfred Lunt was about to get 2 of the luckiest breaks of his life. Playwright Booth Tarkington noticed his talent and wrote a play called Clarence specifically for him. The play, a hugely successful comedy, starred Alfred as an eccentric entomologist just returned from the war. That same year, Alfred also met and literally fell head over heels for Miss Lynn Fontanne. Lynn had spent a few years playing the ingenue to Laurette Taylor's lead. But in 1920, she too had a play written just for her. Dulcie, by George Kaufman and Mark Connolly, was a comedy about a well-to-do wife with a penchant for meddling and creating comic chaos. Dulcie, like Clarence, was a smashing success, and both Lynn and Alfred became theatrical stars of the first order. After courting hot and heavy for a few years, as their dear friend Noel Coward said, Lynn and Alfred wed on May 26, 1922. They were sitting on a bench in Central Park when Alfred said, "Let's get married." "What, now?" was her reply. Yes, now. And so they went off to the justice of the peace right at that instant, stopping only to pull in 2 passers-by off the street to be their witnesses. In 1924, Lynn and Alfred signed on with a young theater company called the Theater Guild. Their first play with them, The Guardsman, would later become their one and only feature film. With the Theater Guild, the Lunts were able to act in plays of social and artistic import, but at less than half their going salaries. As the years went on, Lynn and Alfred's star status enabled them to make 2 very unique demands. One was that they would only work together, never in separate plays. The other was that they would have every summer off to spend at Ten Chimneys. Through hard work and inspiration, the Lunts became the most respected and beloved acting team of their generation. They acted in over 25 plays together and revolutionized American theater, pioneering many of the techniques that actors have now used for decades. Having decided to spend every summer at Ten Chimneys, Lynn and Alfred threw themselves into creating the perfect inspirational retreat. They designed Ten Chimneys the same way they crafted their stage performances, layer upon layer of meticulous detail. Every room was a stage set to them. Every decision was carefully planned to create the right effect. And like a stage set, when it was done, it was done. With few exceptions, Ten Chimneys is the same today as when the Lunts created it. Nearly every summer, the Lunts would come back to Ten Chimneys to rest, rejuvenate, relax, prepare for their next play, and explore their other creative pursuits. Ten Chimneys was their haven, and it was a haven they shared with friends and family alike. The Lunts graciously welcomed their closest friends to Ten Chimneys: Noel Coward, Helen Hayes, Laurence Olivier, Katharine Hepburn, Carol Channing, Alexander Woollcott, Edna Ferber, and on and on. Here they enjoyed an opportunity to tend the garden, literally and figuratively. It was a place that nurtured their creativity and encouraged lasting relationships. It was also a place where they lingered over good food and reveled in sparkling conversations. The Lunts' hearts and minds were never far from the theater, and Ten Chimneys inevitably became a beacon for artistic collaboration. This small farm in Genesse Depot, Wisconsin, grew into the place for artistic creation, discussion, inspiration, and leadership. In 1958, a theater was named in the Lunts' honor in New York. The first play in the Lunt Fontanne Theater was Lynn and Alfred's final stage production, The Visit. After The Visit closed in 1960, the Lunts retired from the stage. They traveled, acted in a few television specials, and above all, relished their time at Ten Chimneys. Lynn once explained, "The best thing, in a way, about our marriage was retirement. After all those years of work, we had a long, marvelously peaceful time in the garden." Alfred passed away in 1977. At that point, his brother-in-law, George Bugbee, lived in the cottage and looked after Lynn and the estate. Lynn lived here until her death in 1983. Mr. Bugbee continued on at Ten Chimneys, keeping it just as the Lunts had left it until his death in 1995. In 1996, Ten Chimneys Foundation was formed to restore and preserve the estate as a world-class house museum and a national resource for theater and arts education. Perhaps Carol Channing best summed up what it was like to experience Ten Chimneys. "There is a peculiar feeling for actors or anybody in the theater that when you went to Ten Chimneys, it meant you must have done something right. You had died and gone to heaven. You were home." We hope you enjoy this same feeling as you experience the spirit of warmth, creation, and retreat that still exists at Ten Chimneys.